keep forgetting.
Hello and welcome to Dateline New Haven on WNHH-FM, New Haven's home for community radio. I'm Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make our community tick. We have in the studio two of the busiest people in New Haven this week. They're always busy. They're always making good things happen, but this week they're especially busy because this week is National Lead Poisoning Prevention Week, when the whole country focuses extra on making sure kids don't get poisoned by lead paint in their older homes. And right in New Haven, we're right at the forefront of that. We got Maritza, the city health director, Rafael Ramos, the city environmental health director, who are all over it and they can tell us what they're up to. Welcome, folks, and thanks for coming, as always, to the studio.
It's such a pleasure to be back and nice to see you in person.
We love to have you. So, folks, National Lead Poisoning Prevention Week. How's it going?
It's going amazing. I'm so proud of the team. We have an array of activities scheduled because this is about awareness and prevention and making sure that we are combating and addressing lead head on.
Mm-hmm. So lead's a big deal in New Haven. The number that always gets thrown around is that over 80% of our homes in New Haven were built before 1978. In fact, it's part of what we love about New Haven, right?
Yeah.
I love the older homes.
Yeah, they're really pretty as long as they're maintained and intact. And
they used lead paint because we didn't know until 78 or it wasn't decided.
We didn't know.
And now we know that if kids, if the kids are exposed to it, if there's dust, if they breathe it in, if there are chips on the windowsill,
swallow it,
then this could harm them for life if they're under 6, right? It can affect their brain and nervous system.
Indeed.
Their IQ goes down. They can't pay attention. They don't perform well in school.
Correct.
So it's a big deal.
Correct. It's a big deal, and it's a big issue. And we have one of the highest cases actually across the state of Connecticut, and so it is a big deal for us to have a robust program and be able to support our community.
So how do you go about making sure that kids don't get poisoned by lead paint? And how many kids are getting poisoned by lead paint?
So on an average, we're seeing about 120 to 130 cases per year.
Of cases of what?
Of children under the age of 6 that are having elevated blood levels. At the time, greater than 5. We now are targeting 3.5 elevated blood levels and up. But we are, as of this year alone, in 2023, we've seen about 94 cases of children under the age of 6. And so it's really big. It's really important for us to really enhance the way that we have been engaging with the community. And we've done a lot of different work, and Rafael can talk a little bit about creatively what we're doing to engage our community.
And in general, so there's been a problem that's been around a long time. There was a point until a few years ago where the city was at war with the advocates for the kids' legal aid. Now you're on the same page. You had a consent decree, you agreed to do everything together. You have all these new initiatives.
Yes.
In fact, Rafael was hired as part of a bunch of people you've hired to focus on lead paint.
Correct.
And we're all kind of marching now in one step to deal with it.
We are. And, right before I began, I was charged to be able to address the lead debacle that we were faced with. And in essence, what we had to do is rebuild the infrastructure to ensure that we use modernized systems as well as invest resources. So we only had 2 lead inspectors, for example, and we were able to increase to 6 inspectors. I was very fortunate to have Rafael from LCI at the time then come over to the health department to support.
So Rafael has spent his career with inspections of housing for the building code. So now you already knew what it was like to go to places, look at stuff, deal with landlords, that kind of stuff.
Well, believe it or not, he started out as a lead inspector back in the day when he first started his career in
93.
Okay, Rafael, I'm going to ask you close to the mic. So I remember meeting you around that time.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that was lead you were doing.
Yeah, back then, I was working for Bridgeport back then.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, we wanted to make sure that, number one, we built an infrastructure, we supported our workforce, and we also wanted to be transparent. And so we developed a online dashboard so you can go right on our website and be able to see what's the status of lead. Obviously, aggregated data to protect any information that can be compromised. But nevertheless, it's very informative in being able to understand what's happening in our city. And of course, our ultimate goal is to decrease cases. I mean, we're trying to make sure that we're investing so that ultimately we can try to ensure that we're minimizing the risk. And education is a big component of
So
that.
education, you let landlords know what they can do. You've got money to help them fix up their places. You knowing parents to know,
Yes.
tenants how they can contact you to get help,
Yep.
what you could do to avoid getting it. And there's also an enforcement aspect that when people aren't doing the work, you want to make sure they're forced to, correct?
Everything is regulatory. Fortunately to protect the well-being of the community. And in fact, when the governor proposed legislation across the state on lead, he used New Haven as a best practice model. And for
Isn't
that,
that interesting?
I
How
know.
our reputation turned around like that pretty fast.
Yeah, that's what we do.
All right. And we're talking about National Lead Paint Prevention Week, Lead Paint Poisoning Prevention Week, with Maritza Bond and Rafael Ramos from the city who are on top of it. So, Rafael, you came out, I guess it was about a year and a half ago to do this?
Oh, two.
Boy, time was
Almost two and a
fast,
half.
doesn't it?
Yeah, time was real fast.
So you
Yeah.
had a whole career in public service and making neighborhoods safer, dealing with landlords and tenants, getting people in cold nights to a place when the heat wasn't working, all that kind of stuff. And now there's sort of a new chapter in your career. How's that going? What have you been up
It's going
to?
pretty good. Working hard. Working.
I saw you at
Anybody-
Halloween, with all the kids at the trunk or treat and giving the parents info on lead paint and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, we are at the health department. Thank you for mentioning the physical effects that it can have on children.
Well, that's the whole reason we care, right?
Yeah, but the behavioral problems, or it can cause problems with the organs. It can also cognitive problems, learning. All those things are important. But there's good news, Paul. The good news is that it's 100% preventable.
Yep.
Through education, information, resources, awareness. And that's what we're up to this week. At the health department, we look at this with two prongs. One is being very proactive, getting the information out about the resources that are available, making parents and young parents aware of what the problem is. As you mentioned, as quaint as our city is, 80% of all the homes were built prior to 1978.
There's a price to historic.
Correct. Right. The year that lead paint
Ambiance.
was banned from being used in residential properties. And it's not a problem when it's because the lead is there. It's a problem when the paint becomes defective, dusty, chipping, flaky. and
Meaning that you
peeling.
haven't repainted your windowsills
Right.
and all the stuff starts chucking
Correct.
up.
Those kinds. So parents need to be aware in the interim while we try to address these issues and educate property owners and maintenance men on what the approach should be. The big thing is to make parents aware that there are things that they can do to keep their children away from this harmful dust. And it's the dust that gets most children. And that inadvertently hand-to-mouth action.
And this
Yeah.
thing is under 6. So if you're a 12-year-old, it's not going to wreck your brain.
No. Well, no. And the thing is, hand
so
washing
interesting.
with young children, right? Young children crawl everywhere.
Children at the highest risk
Right.
in that early developmental age, and so that's the focus of trying to catch at that age group, to making sure that they understand. Typically, it's when, like Raphael's describing, it's when the kids are crawling and are knowing. Sometimes they're chewing on the wood panel because they don't know. Older children are typically not doing.
And it
those
is pretty
types
much
of
impossible to leave kids on their own at that age without them having that risk. Kids explore. They explore with their fingers. They
They
explore with their
certainly do.
mouths. They explore up close to everything.
And that's why it's important to educate parents on what strategies they can do to sort of keep an eye on that, those type of things if they're living in a home prior to 1978.
So what are you telling parents to do?
We're telling parents to, first and foremost, control the dust. The best way to deal with dust is wet cleaning.
Wet
so we
cleaning.
do wet cleaning. We'll talk more about it. We have some wet
I
cleaning.
saw that. I saw you
demonstrations.
had these wet cleaning
Demonstration.
events. I said I'm going to learn a new term
Yeah,
here.
yeah. And we encourage, we encourage parents to not let people wear shoes in the house, particularly when you have toddlers. Practice hand washing.
So don't wear shoes in the house. Is that because they might have walked somewhere where it was?
Right. Remember, we put
Soil,
the soil. It's everywhere.
it's everywhere.
Right. We put dust. We put leaded gas into the environment for like 75, 80 years, right? So the dust is there everywhere. You walk into your homes with your shoes on, you may be
And the
contaminated.
I didn't even think about that.
Right.
So when
I
we
know.
had all that leaded gasoline, it
It's
came
still
down
there.
into the soil.
Lead is heavy; it stays down. So,
Wow.
You know what I mean? So it's still everywhere. So wet cleaning, practicing a lot of hand washing with young children. No shoes in the house. Keeping children away from areas where the paint is defective. either peeling or chipping and those kind of stuff. If you have those old windows, put a piece of
I kept bringing up the
furniture-
windows. That happened to me once, like a long, long time ago, 30 something years ago. We were landlords, and people moving in, their kids were already lead paint poisoned.
Yeah.
And we had this old house, and we were required, which I thought was good, but it was a pain. These old
because you had a
windowsills,
historic
they're all
home?
carved, they're so elaborately carved, designed windowsills that are historic, but the paint chips easily, and it's a few layers, and you really got to get it all scraped down and repainted.
Yeah. And we work with the historic preservation team to make sure that we're still preserving, but also being mindful of protection and
And it is
remedying-
good preservation too. It costs money to like go down,
expensive for
of course,
sure.
several layers of paint and really keep something in good shape with
But
good paint.
fortunately, we have grant funds for that.
have money.
And that's the purpose of us really also with this campaign this week, is that we want to make sure that homeowners, which about 70% or so occupy the city.
Wait a second, 70% of the city's owner occupied?
So 30%.
That's what I thought.
70% is rental.
Yeah, that's what I always thought.
Yeah.
Wait, 30% is
30% only 30% is owner occupied.
Right, that's what I thought.
70% is
Rental.
Absentee.
And that's what I mean. 70% are
Rental.
homeowners are renting to
Right.
individual residents, and so that is a significant percentage, and they can qualify for these free grants and be able to get lead abatement funds and be able to remedy the issue. Also, they can get up to $25,000 on that. But we also have a healthy homes component where we can identify high risk areas of triggers, for example, and they can get up to $15,000.
Can you explain to me what that means? Identify high risk triggers.
So HUD has a concept
HUD is
called
Department of
Healthy
Housing and
Homes.
Urban Development,
Yeah.
federal government. Yeah.
Correct. And they have this concept called Healthy Homes, where they identify 129 different items in someone's home that, if not maintained, could be adverse to their health. But we'll prioritize the first 5, and not limited to that 5, but fire prevention, tripping hazards, air quality.
Oh,
and
so
those
it's not
kind of
just lead
things.
paint. Okay.
It's not just lead paint.
Correct.
There are other things.
Especially like asthma, for example. And asthma is another significant a risk. Unfortunately, a lot of our children are affected by asthma.
So you have
in
the
our
3
city.
grants specifically for lead paint removal up to $25K, and then you have a separate set of grants. Both of them, I believe, are funded by the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD.
Right.
The other ones for up to $15K are for a series of unhealthful aspects of a
Healthy
home
home.
that you're going to address.
And then we also are getting ARPA funding from the state of
And that's
Connecticut.
federal pandemic relief money. And what's that going toward?
That's going to go also towards being able to remedy some of these issues and offset some of these costs. We're going to obviously be also investing in preventative strategies and activities for that. And then we have local funds, local ARPA funds that we use to buy like XRF machines, to making sure that the machines that we use to detect lead are up to date and work in working conditions. And so we purchased new equipment for our lead inspectors.
So tell me if I'm right from the outside. When I look inside a government, I feel like if I were in your jobs, one of the hardest parts would be to get the word out when you get that grant money. Like I watched Raphael at this Halloween trunk or treat trying to, in Edgewood Park, trying to get the kids and have a good time with their parents, let the parents take this flyer home, call them about getting help with this lead paint there. It seems to me like it's hard to spend government money to actually get people who need it, get the money in their hands. I'm thinking of like Biden's Build Back Better and everything that takes. Is that true? Is it a real challenge to get the word out and get the money into the hands?
Yeah, well, there could be some challenge, but we have a lot of sort of staff and outreach workers working right now, community health care workers.
That's where Maritza started her career, right? How do you do community health care?
Yeah.
How do you
Right.
connect with people? So
20
Right.
semi years ago. And we're also doing campaigns. And so we have marketing funds that's allowing us now to sort of extend our reach. And so we're trying a multi-pronged approach
Right.
of
A lot of
strategies.
different ways. And-
Being on the radio is one of them. Social media is another aspect. And then also sort of like these demonstrations is making it more engaging. We also did Mama's Love Day.
what
Where
was Mama's Love Day?
it's an annual sort of like community fair day where we have not just education around lead prevention, but we actually partner with all the different type of entities that provide different services for the community, like the community health centers, community-based organizations, that provide services like heating assistance, and other organizations like LCI. All of these different entities all participate each year as a way that we can sort of do like a one-stop shop where different services that they may need is right
So you
available
get an
to
event,
them.
you bring them there, you do the marketing, and I'm sorry I interrupted
And
you,
we
Raphael.
feed them.
And Raphael was telling us about your 8 outreach workers. So how do they reach people?
Well,
No, we have.
we don't have 8 hours.
I wish we did, Hattie.
I wish we did. But we do a lot of community events. For example, tonight we will be at City Hall between 5 and 6 o'clock, working with property owners and homeowners and trying to get them to apply for a volunteer-led inspection and see if they can participate in
The lead abatement program.
The lead abatement program.
So that was going to pivot to that. We're talking about National Lead Poison Prevention Week. We're busy here in New Haven this week. Raphael Ramos and Maritza Bond getting the word out to people. So we talked about parents and all the things you tell them. Now you're pivoting to landlords. So with 70% of our stock rental, most of it, how are you trying to get the landlords involved in this? What are you trying to tell them?
Right. So this week is not only for landlords, but the community as a whole, right? We're all going to want to come together and make people aware of the problem and the resources that are available, right? So, but it actually started on Sunday where we were out doing canvassing in our neighborhoods with the Hill, Dixwell, New Hallville, Hill North, Hill South, Fairhaven Annex. We had 3 teams out. We were going door to door, putting up lawn signs, trying to get people sort of.
And Paul, I actually saw them in action. So I was just coming home. You and I were texting. I'm coming home, and I literally see them in action, putting all the signs out to bring awareness to the community. And I was so proud of the team that on a Sunday where they can be home with their families, they're out really working hard to bring awareness to the community. And I was really proud of that moment. I had to stop, take pictures, and then brag about them, saying I had the best team.
So the landlords can get money from you guys to make their houses.
Correct.
And if you get into the mic, sorry.
And it's correct. They can get money, and it's a 5-year forgivable loan over a certain amount.
How much does that go up to?
I'm sorry. We can go up to $25,000 in some units.
And they can use that for lead.
And they can use that for lead abatement to make their homes lead safe. And it's a forgivable loan, no interest, forgivable at 20% per year.
Yep. And that's for the lead abatement piece, right? To fix, maybe, replace windows or other factors, walls and things of that nature. But then what I'm excited about is the Healthy Homes Initiative too, because people really don't know about that. Like, you can get new energy appliances. Like, if you have dated appliances that are causing some of the risk factors like trip hazards, or even, some of the studies showing that gas stoves is a contributing factor to asthma, and you have young children switching to electric. I mean, we can literally purchase, as long as they qualify, new appliances for individual.
And you talk about fire, with alarms and stuff like that?
Correct.
Fire alarms,
Radon.
tripping hazards, broken steps. Radon, it's a big one.
We can get radon. Yep.
Yep.
And so it's really exciting. And so we do encourage people to visit the health department website, where we have brochures on the eligibility criteria and things of that nature. And we want to encourage property owners are the recipients of those grants.
How many homes in New Haven? Like, do you have to inspect all rental units for lead paint?
No.
This is only if someone tests.
We wish we had the resources.
So instead, it's that people get tested and then you hear about them.
Right. So there's 2. I'm sorry. There's the proactivity that we're doing now. If we can get landlords to volunteer, we'll do a test, and then we'll help them with the abatement. But the other one is sort of reactionary to when a child goes to a healthcare provider and has a lead test, the healthcare provider is required to report to the state.
And our kids supposed to get that as part of a regular blood test?
A
Yes.
kid should be tested 3 times before the age of 3.
Oh, wow.
That's correct.
Okay, so annually up until 3. So every kid in the city who goes to a doctor gets an annual checkup, gets the lead tested, and then the doctor has to let you know.
Right. So
it's automatically, it's reportable. And so then once it gets reported, it activates at the local level, depending on the jurisdiction of the child. So obviously we have jurisdiction over New Haven. That triggers and automatically activates as a case. and then then that starts the regulatory process, which is very lengthy, but it includes doing an assessment to try to identify, is it coming from the home, is it coming from a potential home daycare or a grandparent. So we have to do an intensive interview process to sort of
That's so
identify that
interesting.
trigger, because
Are the parents at all defensive or no?
it depends, especially now that we're dropping the levels, and we'll be gradually dropping them as the ultimate goal, because CDC also recommends
I
that
do
we
want to
continue.
get that to a second, yeah.
And so sometimes if the blood levels are relatively low, we may get a parent that's defensive, because it's hard to.
About grandma's house or something.
It's hard for them to hear the
Who
truth.
does the interviews and then the inspections?
The lead inspectors do the entire process.
That's interesting. And then if a landlord won't fix it, you bring them to court?
Well, they're usually compliant.
Oh, they
so
do.
let's start there. They're usually compliant.
Because
It's
I've
very
noticed
small
about some
percentage.
landlords who own a lot of property. I know they've been being brought into court for code violations. Is that included lead paint?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then, but they many landlords have now have their own lead abatement trained folks and those kind of things, which is a good thing. But our resources is still there. Doesn't mean that they can't participate.
Okay.
With our,
I was looking at the dash cam, which I know lead paint isn't fun, but it was fun to go to your dashboard.
Oh, did you check it out?
It was so cool, and the numbers keep
Thank
moving, and
you.
everything, and all the data
Yeah.
that's there, and all the background stuff you could click on to understand. I'm kind of geeky about that kind of stuff. I enjoyed it, but anyway, I saw that the number of open cases has grown a lot. Is that because we're identifying better? We have 53 open cases this year. We had 20 last year, 5 in 2021. Does that just mean we're finding out about it?
No. No.
If you can
But
go on the mic, Arvio.
remember, we have the most stringent lead ordinances in the state, right? So at 3.5, we automatically contact the caregivers or parents and give them information. It's what we call a sort of educational packet to reduce the risk, right? We give them information. At 5, we do a comprehensive lead inspections. Now, our numbers are higher because we're more stringent.
Right. So I want to get to what those numbers mean. So there's a measure in blood that if you have a level of blood if your blood has 5 or more micrograms per deciliter. So when we're throwing these numbers 5, 3.5, 10, 15, we're talking about the number of micrograms per deciliter. So until just a few years ago, New Haven and other cities in the state were using 10. Right, or even 15, right?
15.
Well,
thought
they
New
were
Haven was doing
using
10.
20. They were using 20, and New Haven was using 5.
I thought we were using 10 before you came on.
No, it was
Well,
it was
by code. it
by
should have been
code
5.
on the ordinance. It was 5.
But we were in practice doing 10. I thought that's what the lawsuits were about before you came on.
So I'm not going to discuss the lawsuit any further, but the ordinance had us at responding at 5, and the state had us responding at 20, and that's where the discrepancy was.
So now, since then, as you mentioned, the Centers for Disease Control, CDC, they've been doing more research and catching up with New Haven. They were saying, in fact, kids are a danger at much less than that 20. So the state passed a law to go from 15 to 10 statewide, the level at which a test would trigger an investigation, correct? And they're going to go to 5 by 2025. But we in our city, have we gone from 5 to 3.5 already?
Well, at 3.5, we're just doing education. At 5, we activate by the local ordinance. And the state is going to be catching up to that. But
That's
our
what I was saying. The
ultimate
state,
goal-
I'm saying they're not getting to 5 until 2025.
Correct.
We're already at 5.
We are the stringents in the state, but we do provide education at the very minimum.
And is that an open case? Because on your dashboard, it says it open cases if it's 3.5 or more.
Yes, because we want to make sure that the education is being tracked. Every component is tracked by the
But the difference at 5, so 3.5 is education, 5 is you activate where inspectors look into it.
That's right.
Are we going to move to 3.5 for that or no?
That's an ultimate goal, essentially. So it is an infrastructure build out, but we know that any type of lead in a child's body causes harm. And so it is a reality that we are faced with, and it's certainly a goal that we would like to achieve in the future.
And you've gotten $7.6 million from HUD in the 2 grants since 2019?
Yes.
All right. Well, that's great. We're talking about Lead Paint Week. Let's talk about Lead Paint Week itself. Raphael began speaking about that phrase I never heard of before today, wet cleaning. I can guess what it is because we all do wet cleaning. We mop and stuff, right? So you're giving demonstrations and giveaways. Monday, it was a key food. Wednesday, it's going to be Stop Shop Whaley. Friday, the other key food at Kimberly Square. The first one was Fairhaven. You're doing wet cleaning demonstrations and giveaway. What is that?
So we want to show, and we're not saying that people, don't get us wrong, we're not saying people don't know how to clean.
Right.
But there is a science to cleaning dust. And the lead dust is very fine, not visible to the eye. This is why there's a particular technique for cleaning, and that is you don't really want to use a vacuum cleaner unless it's a high proficiency vacuum cleaner made for that.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Because you're spreading dust, right? Because you're getting the big particulates, but the fine particulates are coming out the back. The same with a broom, right? So how we want to control the dust is wet rags, damp sponges, damp mops. Swiffers are the best. You swift the floor, then you wrap it up and throw it in the garbage and get a new sort of a new
I didn't know
refill.
those were wet. I guess you wet them, right?
Yeah, no.
used
They're
those,
damp.
yeah.
They come damp. And
they do?
Yeah, and the refills are damp already. So it's controlling dust, and the best way to control dust is wet. So
what do you do with these demonstrations?
So at these demonstrations, we actually show people how to wipe, how to keep the dust, how to control the dust.
Areas to be mindful of.
And the areas. I'm sorry,
Like
go
which
ahead.
kind of places that you want to think of? Like a
Correct.
windowsill?
Yeah.
Windowsill, the floor in front of the windowsill, the floor around doors, friction areas, right? So friction areas are windows, doors, and stairs, right? And so every time you walk up those stairs, if there's lead paint, and particularly if it's defective, you're creating the dust. If you're opening and closing the window constantly in the summertime, you're creating.
And as you
the
mentioned
dust.
earlier, if a child is breathing that or tends to be crawling and then swallows one of the chipping paints, that's where the risk increases. And so we want to make sure that we're being proactive in supporting families on techniques to enhance their cleaning strategies when they are renting or owning a home prior to 1970.
Sounds kind of fun too. Like if people show up at this thing, were they there yesterday?
Yeah,
Key Foods?
people do show up.
Because they're
Yeah.
shopping.
And
Because you're going
yeah.
where they are, which
Yeah,
is
'cause they're going
shopping.
shopping,
So
yeah.
where'd you set up outside the Key Food?
Right outside.
And we're giving out prizes.
What kind of prizes?
And we're giving out buckets. We're giving
Swag.
out the swag. Yeah, and other stuff, bottles.
I love how
water
you guys
bottles,
love this stuff, like
information.
hands-on ways to involve people in being safer so that these doesn't happen in the first place. That's a great
Yeah.
idea.
Right.
We want to be able to not just talk about it, but also, sort of how they say, be about it and show and demonstrate. And we love to be out engaging with the community. No one wants to be behind a desk all day.
Well, another time you're not behind a desk is, as Maritza said, she saw you on Sunday. You're distributing lawn signs all week.
Yes.
The East Shore, Westville, Dixville, New Harville, East Shore again, the Hill. Is the idea is that you show there a number and a website to go to
Yeah,
find out
there's
about
a-
lead paint?
Absolutely.
Yep.
We brought a sample here.
Yeah, there's a QR code and everything. You can go
Oh,
to.
okay. QR codes.
So
are
this
good.
is the sample. I don't know if it's here.
I like it, yeah.
And then it's we just try to have everything
Spanish and
in
English.
Spanish and English at the very minimum, but we will have other languages as needed, and so that people can get more information right through that scanning that QR code as they're walking by or safely park and be able to walk up and scan and get information. So really excited about lead prevention awareness week, trying to make sure that people are aware. So please give us a call. Our staff are ready and able at 203-946-5382 as we want to make sure that we are here to service you. And we want to encourage homeowners. And the reason why we're really stressing that is that is the way to be able to access those benefits. And so we want to make sure that homeowners are aware that it is forgivable within that 5-year period, as Raphael mentioned.
And then you're also reading aloud to kids. How'd that go? You're at Lincoln Bassett. You're going to Barnard. What do you read them about?
But we read stories.
Get to the mic.
We read stories. We read stories to designed for children, but to talk about lead, to make them aware of where the hazards
So is the stories
are.
about a kid who learns not to touch the
Right.
windowsill? Or
and those kind of things.
are they
Yeah,
sad
and their
stories where
parents-
the kid
and-
gets sick or no?
Say again?
Are they sad stories where the kids get sick?
No. They're not sad stories. They're just stories to make you aware that there's a hazard.
And then you're also doing, you mentioned earlier, Maritza or Raphael, you're doing a workshop at City Hall today, 5 to 6 o'clock in English, then Thursday in Spanish, Healthy Homes. What is that workshop?
Lead abatement,
Lead
right?
abatement and healthy homes.
And healthy homes. We do a combo.
We do a combo, and just to make people aware of the process, the application, the process, who qualifies, who doesn't qualify. And we could talk about other things, particularly about healthy homes. I'm excited because for senior citizens, for example, we know that there's a relationship between the cost of your utilities and how well you eat. Correct? So if you have an antiquated refrigerator from 1970, you're probably paying all your electrical on that refrigerator, compressor, and motor. We can provide an energy efficient refrigerator for elderly folks so that to help them reduce their energy bill and consumption. So those are the things that Maritza mentioned about, appliances that relate to health.
It is interesting how much they've improved appliances based on what they've learned.
It's amazing. I mean, even ACs, the air quality is another component that we assess.
So you've been doing all this stuff in lead paint. Do you have time to deal with other issues? Like there used to be this pandemic, COVID.
So I'm very fortunate. Thank God I'm listening. So COVID-19 has been classified as a respiratory illness. I'm very grateful that we have transitioned into being able to address an array of initiatives, and we have a team of individuals working in different departments and really focusing their efforts, like opioids. For example, we just received a federal grant on addressing overdoses in our city, and so we are certainly finalizing our strategic plan because we want to make sure that as we now came out of COVID, are transitioning out of COVID, not necessarily fully, but we now have measures where people have options where they can stay safe and either take, medicine or vaccinations. So there's therapeutic medication or vaccinations available, or in preventative measures like mask and testing, that's still important.
I was interested to watch the first year of the pandemic when the whole world had to focus on it night and day because it was life or death.
Correct.
You were able to chew gum and walk at the same time. You did start putting in these lead paint. This isn't new. You guys have been working at this pretty hard.
This was happening simultaneously
for almost 4 years now, and we went full steam ahead during the pandemic. And so, way to go!
Thank you. Thank you.
I love what you're doing. Anything else you want people to know before we say so long?
We want to just make sure that people visit our website to get information.
Which website?
It's the newhavenct.gov.
And nhvlead.org. Okay. nhvlead.org will take you right to the lead paint.
Perfect.
Well, keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Getting
Stay
out
safe,
the word
everyone.
about lead paint. Thank you to Maritza Bond and Rafael Ramos, City Health Director and City Environmental Health Director. Thanks to Harry Drost, who's the magician who makes people hear these shows over so many platforms I can't keep track of them. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience performing I Wish I Knew How It'd Feel to Be Free from the group CD, A Plea for Peace. Boy, we need that now more than ever. This is Paul Bass inviting you to fly free with us all day and all night long at WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio.